And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another excited, enthusiastic off-season episode of the Assembly Call. This is Indiana basketball, where there really is no off-season. What is this, a random night in the middle of June, and we've got a live episode of the Assembly Call. We've got the Big Ten Network that is rebroadcasting the IU-Kentucky game from 2011 with Christian Watford retweeting it. So even though it's the middle of the summer, even though it's supposed to be the time of baseball, for those of us who love the Indiana Hoosiers, this is still all about college basketball, and that's why you're here watching it. We appreciate you watching us tonight. We have a very, very special episode, one that we're very excited about. We have a special guest, one that you all know very well, and that is DocLibby, who you just saw pop up there. Dr. Lydia Farrell, Yogi Farrell's mom, and she is going to be here with us for the next hour to talk about Yogi and what her experience has been like being the mom of a high-profile college athlete like Yogi. And also, not just Yogi, but how she balances her responsibilities with Yogi and having three other super athletes in her family. And so we have a lot of good questions and good conversation coming up for you. I will remind you as we begin tonight to go to assemblycall.com/subscribe and get on our email list if you haven't yet. We're doing our every other week news roundups. We also alert you to special edition shows like this one. So we want to make sure that you get on that. Maybe you don't want to keep up with IU news every single day, but you still want to stay updated during the off season. Let us keep you updated, and we will. So to begin tonight, very quickly, we will start, as we always do, with a banner moment. And my banner moment, quite simply, is this tweet that I read earlier today from Chronic Hoosier, which is, walking the dogs while the kids are at IU swim, spot Seawat leading the, parentheses, tired Frosh Biggs out of a Cook Hall workout. Love to see that. And one of the reasons why that's the banner moment is, you talk about a program like Michigan State, and you always hear about how the ex-players are coming back and reinforcing the culture of the program. And I've loved this offseason how many stories we've seen of the ex-players coming back. Victor and Will and Watford and all these guys being back on campus, showing some of the younger guys how it's done, how to work, what's expected of them. And this is just another example of that. And I think with the talent that's coming in and the talent that's been here, showing those guys the way, I think obviously that means good things, not just for this year's team, but for the future of the program as well. So with that said, let me bring in my co-host, Ryan Phillips, and we've got Will DeWitt here as well. Ryan, do you have a rant for us to lead off the evening?
We'll call it the rant still just because it sounds so good. But, no, really there's nothing to complain about. I think this is, what I wanted to talk about is that since our last show, it's been nothing but good news. And because it's Indiana basketball, that kind of week is few and far between, or I guess 2 weeks. But you got the freshmen on campus. They're working out. They're involved. Like you said, you got old players back, reinforcing the culture of the program, things like that. That's huge. And as you said about, Michigan State or Kansas or some of these other, you hear about that a lot with those schools. And now we're starting to get to the point where Tom Crean has some of these players that have been through the system under him that, went through the bad times and the good times, and now they can come back and sort of reinforce what it means to be a Hoosier to these new guys. And I think that's huge, and that's a big step. And having those guys want to come back and want to be involved is again, just a big deal. And so it's been a great 2 weeks for IU basketball, and this offseason has gone, pretty darn well so far over the last couple weeks, and hopefully it continues. Phase 2, as Coach Crean called it, of the offseason is going really well.
Yes. And Andy is not here, but he did pass along a bottoms line, which is that because of our guest, this is probably the show that Stephen Bardo is most likely to watch, because if you've listened to him announce, clearly his Big Ten crush is our guest tonight, which is Dr. Lydia Farrell. And Doc, we are really, really excited.
Lovely.
We're really excited that you're here. Thank you for coming on tonight. We appreciate it.
Definitely not a problem. Thanks for having me. I'm a big fan of your show anyway, and I watch all the time, at least when I can, because if there's a game at Assembly Hall, most of the time I'm trying to watch it while I'm driving back, home. But it's good to be here, and I'm glad I had a chance to do it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, we've been trying to plan this, and I'm glad we were able to finally get it done. So to begin, I mean, there's so many questions that I want to ask you, and I think to start, Yogi has had to make two really big decisions in his basketball career about where he was going to play. Obviously one when he was at Park Tudor, deciding where he was going to play at college, and then after last season when he was deciding whether he was going to leave for the NBA or stay in college. And both times when he's had to make that decision, the decision has been Indiana. What is it about Indiana that is such a good fit for Yogi?
I think when we talk about his high school career, he's used to being with a team where he can add something. I think that with the other, as you know, he was pretty highly recruited by most of the Big Ten teams, but at Indiana he felt like he had a better fit because they did need a guard. They needed somebody to lead the team. At that time, Jordan Hulse was there, and he was doing a pretty good job, but Jordan was more of a two guard actually, and he did a great job with shooting, but they needed somebody to man the floor, kind of be a general. And Yogi was used to doing that. Now in high school he did do a lot of shooting, and he obviously floated between a one and a two guard, but Indiana seemed like a good fit in regards to them needing a guard. Also, a big thing is that he was close to home, and that's pretty important to him as well. He's only an hour away, so that was big. But not only family, but also friends and fans were obviously close, where they could continue to cheer him on, either on TV or easily take a trip down to Assembly Hall to watch a game.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I want to jump in with another question. At what age, I mean, obviously Yogi was very highly recruited, but at what age did you know that it was more than just this guy's good at basketball? I mean, clearly he's a special talent and was recruited pretty highly. At what age did you know, okay, this is actually a thing, like he's going to be, a special basketball player?
Now you're asking a mom this question, so obviously,
day one, right?
Obviously, when I put the ball in the crib and he gripped it with his hands, I knew it was something that he was going to be able to do. When he did the YMCA. He was a big, huge YMCA kid. Biddy ball is what he was initially in. So when you see Yogi, at that time everybody's the same height, so height was not an advantage when you're 6 years old running up and down the court. But instead of him running up and down the court holding the ball like most of the kids were doing, he was obviously dribbling it, and that was something pretty amazing. But his when he was, I'll say, third grade, he did AAU ball then, and we started to notice that he was going somewhere, and he had the heart to do it. Again, at that age, about 8 years old, 7 or 8 years old, he obviously height wasn't a factor then either. But he, at that time, I wish I would have pulled some pictures up, but at that time we knew he had the heart to be better. He had the heart to want to lead the team. If people weren't doing better, even at that age, he would try to just rally the team, and it was something natural. Nobody told him he had to do that. He just kind of did it. And if they lost, he felt it. He felt it big time. Just like you see him today, just even shed tears on the court. He's been doing that since the second or third grade. So we knew basketball was something that he definitely wanted to do. Now, that didn't stop us from trying him in other things like gymnastics, soccer, baseball. So he did all the other stuff, football. He did all the other stuff, but it always kept coming back to basketball for him.
When Yogi was coming in, I mean, IU at the time when he was coming in as a freshman was ranked #1 in the nation. They had all these guys returning, those 4 1,000-point scorers, and the year before they had kind of surprisingly gone to the Sweet 16, beaten Kentucky, and it looked like the program was back, as everyone said. So he's coming in as a freshman onto that team with a lot of upperclassmen, a lot of experience, All-American and Cody. What was it like for you as a parent and for him to know that he's getting the ball as the point guard on this team, getting the keys right as he steps on campus, for both of you? I mean, that's a lot of pressure for a young guy. I mean, how do you think he handled that? How did you handle that? And was it, nervous because obviously you want to be protective of your boy, but he's in the national spotlight immediately when he stepped on a college campus?
He's a pretty strong kid. He's always been pretty independent, and having something like that on his shoulders wasn't new to him. Now, granted, it was on a larger scale, obviously, but he's used to leading teams. He led his team even in middle school. He led his team in high school. So he was used to leading teams. Now, that's not to say that when he got on campus, we had to knock him down a couple of notches, right? I mean, we definitely had to, not we as in me, but just the university just had to, yeah, you're getting on this court and you're going to lead this team, but you're also going to know that you can't do everything. You have to be humble. You have to be open and willing to learn. And that's a good thing about Yogi as well, because he's a very coachable kid, and that's sometimes hard to find in an athlete that is of his caliber.
So, you've got that freshman season, which is an incredible experience for a freshman to be on the #1 team, to win a Big Ten title. Obviously, you've got the disappointment at the end of the year. But then he comes back for a sophomore season, and it's totally different. I mean, Will's back, and you've got an influx of freshmen who are talented but not quite ready for the night-in, night-out rigors of Big Ten play. And that team really struggled. I mean, they didn't make the tournament. To us from 1,000 miles away, it never really seemed like that team gelled quite as much, and maybe that's just in comparison to what we had seen before. But, when Yogi took some criticism, even though he was progressing as you would want a guy to do from freshman to sophomore year and taking on a totally different role, how was that for you, watching him and watching maybe the different reactions fans had with him now that he was more in the spotlight and yet the team wasn't succeeding quite as much?
That was a year where I grew a little bit. I learned how to bite my tongue a lot. I had to learn to bite my tongue because on one end I have to support Yogi. I definitely keep it, as I say to him, it's up to me to keep it 100. So I definitely told him what he needed to hear. A little bit of mom love in there too, oh honey, you're doing fine kind of thing. But that year was a tough year for Yogi as well. He wasn't happy with how the team was gelling and getting together and not winning games. That could be frustrating for anybody. But he knew that if he just hung in there, kept up the hard work. I mean, he's coming off of going on the trip to Russia, which gave him new enthusiasm. He brought what he learned from Coach Beeline and some of the other coaches that he would have normally never have seen, and took what they gave him back to IU with him and used that to help him just progress that year. So even though it didn't look like it was a good progression year, it was actually a good progression year mentally, because we did a lot of winning his freshman year. Okay, so now we have to learn how to lose, and he definitely learned how to do that year, which I think gave him the strength that he had to pretty much be running the team his junior year.
So how was it for you? I mean, because you talk about him learning how to lose, but when he was at Park Tudor, it was lots of success. Year one, lots of success. And I know, growing up in a coaching family, I think my mom took the losses harder than anybody else did. What was that like for you to kind of learn how to lose for the first time, Yogi not really being on a team that was successful?
It was pretty frustrating, but as you know, you just have to rally behind the team that you know and love. I mean, plenty of times I've had to give myself chest compressions that year because so many games were just so close, and it was hard to deal with at the time. But now that I look back, I see that it was just a growing year. That's what we're calling it. That's what we're going to chalk it up to. It was a year to grow, and we all grew on and off the court for sure.
Well, we did, and the next year was clearly better. I mean, obviously last season was better. The team returns to the tournament. Yogi's first team All Big Ten. He makes it 3 in every single game.
Yeah.
How how was last year? Because now he's matured. He's into, it's now your third year. How was that experience? And really, how was the experience for you? Off the first two seasons, because every season for him, I don't know that I can remember a player in IU history that has had such distinctly different roles each of their first 3 years. I mean, he's been the point guard every year, but something different has been asked of him.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you deal with those kind of expectations and everything that comes with it?
It's not that hard for me, I guess, because I know that I have a kid who'll take it in stride. He's a pretty smart kid, and I know that it's not gonna. He does take every game to heart, but I know that he has a short memory too. He knows that, that was one shot. I'm going to take the next shot like I never took the last shot and lost it. We're going to win the next game like they were on a pretty bad losing streak last year that none of us ever thought that they would dig out of, but they did, because Yogi and the rest of the team, for that matter, have a short short-term memory, and so I think that that's what helped them. And I think that last year they became more of a family, and I think that that's important too. So you're more likely to help out family than you are if you're just on the court playing with a bunch of guys. I think that was really helpful.
Yeah. So, it's a really interesting time to be a sports fan, and especially to be a sports parent, because social media has changed a lot of things. I mean, you can set up a Twitter account, you say that you're Yogi Ferrell's mom, and immediately you have thousands of people that are following you. What is that like, to have that kind of platform? To know that what you say, what you tweet, what you write on your blog is going to be read by a lot of people. How is that as a responsibility? How, just what is that like to be able to do that and have that kind of platform?
It's I'm not somebody who likes to run out and publicly speak to people. I mean, I just don't do that. Definitely Twitter and doing a blog makes it easier for me to get out what I want and need to say, especially when it comes to rallying behind the team, especially when it comes to rallying behind Crean when everybody wanted him gone. I was, just saying, hey, everybody hang in there. We'll get this. It'll get better. But also, I hear it every day. People I don't know walk up to me and say, I love your blog. I love your Twitter. Your son's amazing. I mean, that's a good feeling to have that. And I think that, parents in the past were just as involved as I am, but they just didn't have the social platform in order to make it known.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I may have asked you this a little bit before we got on the air out of curiosity, but now I'm actually really wondering. You mentioned something about what you put out there and you're passionate and things like that, and you like being involved and all that stuff. So has Yogi ever come up to you and sort of been like, hey mom, tone it down, you're embarrassing me, or anything like that? I mean, that's a normal parent kid interaction. I'm just wondering how it happens when you have a basketball player who's on television all the time and stuff. Has he ever tried to censor you a little bit?
So Yogi follows me on Twitter and Instagram, but I don't think he follows me because he's a fan. I think he's like the Twitter police, and so I think that he appreciates most of the things I say, because most of the time they're intelligent, or at least I think so. But occasionally I may say something that he doesn't like, and within minutes I'll get a text or something that says, hey, mom, can you take that down? And so only because he asked me, because he's Yogi, I'll take it down. But I stand by every embarrassing picture that I put up of him, and I've never, ever taken that down. And if you've seen my Instagram, then you'll see that he does have some embarrassing pictures, as well as some captions that he wasn't so happy with, but I'll never take those down.
What kind of stuff does he typically ask you to take down? Is it more the embarrassing, old school pictures, or is it stuff that maybe about the team or about his play?
More stuff about the team.
Yeah.
More stuff about the team than anything. When it comes to, I think he's already learned that if it's a picture or something, that I'm just not going to take that down. So
Yeah, when you're
for
screaming
14
about the
seconds.
defense like the rest of us are sometimes.
Yeah, he won't tell me to take that down. Or Yogi, that was a stupid shot. Why did you do it? Or Yogi, why are you shooting so much? Just pass the ball. Or he doesn't say anything about that stuff because he knows that it's true. Usually when I say it, I'm just saying what everybody else is thinking because I'm the only one who's allowed to say it. Let's keep that straight. I am the only one that's allowed to. Now, if you want to DM me something that you want me to say, then I'll consider it. But
Mhm.
All right. So, as a sports media student here at IU, we talk a lot about like student athletes and their social media accounts and if they should be allowed to have them. So, as a parent, do you believe student athletes should be able to have their own social media accounts?
that's a great question because there were a couple of times throughout his from his freshman year to through his junior year that I've actually called him and told him to shut down some of his accounts just because. So it depends. I mean, they have to definitely be used appropriately, and they have to be used in such a way that it's going to keep the university in a positive light. So I think that if you're using it for that reason, I think it's a good thing. Or if you want to jaw jack with your friends on there, I mean, obviously, if you're a young adult, you're going to do that. I'm okay with that. But if you use it for negative things or to bash another team or especially like Facebook, people like to tag you in pictures for some reason on Facebook, and some of them aren't so appropriate, but they pop up on your page anyway, then I think that those are some reasons why they shouldn't have it. But if you're going to use it positively, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, that's a great question, Will, and I'm curious, because I'm sure that the SIDs at IU they get a little bit nervous when anybody talks publicly, I would imagine, but especially now in this kind of new era that we're at with
Yeah.
parents having Twitter accounts and just this new era, what kind of responsibility do you feel to the team, to Coach Crean, to Yogi? I mean, how much does that impact what you will say publicly?
Ooh, it means a lot. At least it does mean a lot to me. I am careful about a lot of things that I say. Now, I do like to keep it real most of the time, but there are some things that I may edit because I don't think it's appropriate. But you bet believe after Yogi leaves, I'm going to say whatever I want. So that might be the time to actually follow me on Twitter. But but I think that I use it to just keep the university in a positive light. I like to be the positive person. I'm the unspoken team mom kind of scenario, I guess you can get it. A lot of the guys on the team are, they just see me as Yogi's mom, but I'm also like the mom. So, with Yogi's roommates, I'm going to take care of the roommates. If Yogi needs toilet paper, everybody needs toilet paper kind of thing. So it's just, that's kind of my niche in taking that role on. But I mean, I'm a mom, so obviously it just comes with the territory.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think when you see other moms now? Like Draymond Green's mom was, kind of, I don't know if she was tweeting, but I know she was, kind of talking about how publicly that he needed to tone down his language and his histrionics on the court. Are you starting to see now a lot of other, mothers, parents that are, starting like you to be empowered by having a voice and being unabashed in letting it out there? Do you think that's something we'll continue to see?
Well, I guess I'm kind of egocentric because I'm not really on Twitter like that and see other parents' tweets or anything. But I think parents should take a voice in just letting them, especially their own kids, know that they're supporting them and that they're supporting their team. And if everybody else falls by the wayside, they know the parents are always going to be there to lift them up. So now there are some media outlets, let's just call it that would prefer that parents not say anything at all. But I say it's a different world, and we definitely need to speak up. And granted, it's good if it's all positive, but hey, sometimes it's not, and not all parents know how to say it the right way. I mean, that's just life, and that's just how it is, especially on social media. And people get a lot more bold when you don't have to show your face with whatever you're saying. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like I was telling you. It's interesting when we get on here on the shows after the games, and we know that you watch sometimes. And, it's not, like I was telling you, it's not that I try and censor so much what I say about Yogi, because I think we always try to be pretty fair, and I would never say anything publicly that I wouldn't say to you. But
Right.
there is a different level of responsibility, I guess, that you feel, or a little voice inside your head where it's like, hey, his mom is watching this, so you better make sure that whatever you say, you would say right to her face.
That's right.
And,
That's right.
Obviously,
and I can definitely appreciate that. I am all for constructive criticism because I give it out all the time, so not a problem.
Yeah, but I agree. I mean, it does there's a level of accountability there that just having your presence, I think has, that's different from bygone eras. So, we always talk about you in relation to Yogi, but Yogi is not the only athlete that you are supporting. Obviously there's Caleb and Kelsey and Chloe, and, like you said, you've got 4 super athletes in the family. How do you balance the responsibilities of supporting Yogi, who's clearly at the highest profile point of anybody, and at a very high profile point as a senior at a big-time college basketball program? That's pretty time intensive. How do you balance that then with also being there to support your other 3 super athletes in the family?
So we had to learn how to do this early. Starting in Yogi's freshman year, we brought out a sports calendar. On that sports calendar, everybody's sporting events goes on that. If there happened to be an overlap, then it's an alternating thing. So no matter who Yogi's playing or where he is, if Caleb has a basketball game on that day and I was at Yogi's the last time they overlapped, then I'm going to go to Caleb's game. With the girls and their sporting events, it's the same way. Now, the only thing that trumps that is if a kid says, "You're not going to that Michigan game? Are you crazy? Mine is nothing. You better head out." I never ask twice. Okay, see you later. So that's the only thing that'll trump it, is if a kid lets me go, then I'll go. But most of the time, it's all mapped out every month on what sport. That way, there's no favoritism.
If you were not at a game of Yogi's and he did not make a 3-pointer, would he ever let you live it down? If that broke the streak.
He probably would not. That is true. No, he probably would not. But hopefully we'll never have to see, right?
Exactly. Yeah, what will it be? Have you calculated if he makes one every game this year? Do you know how high it'll be?
I leave that up to you guys to calculate that out for me.
Well, yeah, Andy's our numbers guy, so I guess
okay.
we don't have that answer
Andy.
if he's not here.
He'll listen later. Get on that, Andy.
Yeah, come on, Andy. So, and actually, speaking of Andy, he wanted us to ask, since he couldn't be here, in terms of Yogi's decision to come back, and you've spoken about this a little bit, I think, at least tweeted about it. What were the biggest factors in him coming back, and how? Well, let's start with that. What were the biggest factors in him deciding to come back?
Wow. Obviously, what the team looks like has changed considerably since the last game in Nebraska to now, or even to his decision time. It's changed dramatically. But some of the things he looked at was, what can I accomplish in another year at IU? He's on the cusp of plenty of records that are currently happening at IU, and so that's one thing he had to think about. Since even before he signed his letter of intent at Park Tudor, he knew my wishes. You're going into this for an education. If nothing else comes out of this, you're going to come out with an education, and I've always told him that. And so this past summer, when he was trying to make his decision, that's just something I reiterated. You're going to do all of this and then walk away without an education, because a lot of people know once you walk away from schooling, you don't want to go back. Most people don't want to go back to that. And I didn't want him to be stuck in virtual, I still have 5 credits to take before I can graduate from college. Academics is very, very, very important to me, and that was something huge that I wanted him to think about as well. he also had to think about if he didn't go back to IU, where would his life be? Will it be, he goes in the NBA draft and he doesn't get selected? That happens. No matter how high you think you are on that list, it's all virtual until that day actually happens. So what happens if you don't go? Okay, so now you got to go overseas. Is that something you can live with? Knowing that you could have made a huge difference at IU. It's no secret that I wanted him to go back. I mean, I've been, I've said it, I've tweeted it. I've always, before he even made his decision, I said, I want this kid to go back. When we lost in Nebraska, that camera in my face, that's the first thing I said. It was my job to get that kid to go back to school. So that he knows that it was really, really important to me. But at the same time, I told him it had to be a decision that he had to live with, not something that I wanted him to do, or his father, or Coach Crean, no one, because ultimately he had to be the one that lived with the decision. So.
And take me back to that, kind of the month leading up to the decision, because, obviously we all remember what happened, and I think of all the time that Yogi's been at Indiana, that was probably the time when he had the most criticism publicly. And it was a different kind of criticism because it wasn't about stuff on the court. It was, some of the criticism took on more of a personal tone. You're doing this big event, you're making this about you, this kind of thing. I have to imagine that it's different as a mother dealing with that kind of criticism than just the simple stuff about on the court. How did you, knowing what you wanted to happen, and obviously knowing the inner workings of everything, what was it like dealing with that kind of criticism from, people who during the season are cheering him, and now, there's this more personal twinge to the criticism that he's getting?
Well, I knew fans could wax and wane. That's just what they do. But in regards to how he was going to make his decision, I'm not going to say I necessarily agreed with that. It wasn't something that I would say, hey, yeah, Yogi, that sounds great. Let's go to Ruth Chris and make an announcement about this, your decision. That's definitely not something that I was all on board for. But, again, that was something that was thought up, and it just happened to, unfortunately worked out in a way that we didn't want it to. I wish it didn't have to come down to that, but ultimately it came down to the way that I wish that it would have, in that he made the announcement at IU with, in front of a table draped with IU, logos to say, yeah, I'm coming back, or no, I'm not. So I think it all worked out, in the end, how it was supposed to anyway.
Yeah.
That's how I can say that. Politically correct, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm curious to know, how did you find out about Yogi's decision? And I'm sure I can guess, but what was like your initial reaction when you when he or someone else told you about it?
Jumping for joy.
I already knew his decision, because every day I'm like, do you know now? How about now? What about now? Or I text him, how about now, Yogi? What you doing? You thought about it yet? What you gonna do? Which way are you leaning? So it started with a lean. You leaning this way, or are you leaning that way? So
you're just like the rest of us.
It really was.
Yeah, I think we did a show where we did that exact same thing. So yeah, you're just like the rest of us.
Yes, I am. I knew a little bit before you guys did, but yeah, it was me literally daily. I'm FaceTiming him. He's here, and I'm like, so what you think? Huh? What do you? Or I'd put him in contact with some past NCAA players that were in the exact same boat as him, lean toward leaving or lean toward staying. So I tried to kind of line him up with not only people who agreed with me, but also people who said leave. So just depends.
Yeah, and how I guess, kind of following along with that question, how excited were you then when you saw that James and Troy made the same decision, that the whole, the band was getting back together, and they were, going to be able to add a new guy like Thomas Bryant to really get the excitement high for next year?
I was very, very happy that the core team was staying together. That was really important to me, and I think that was really important to Yogi as well. He wanted to make sure that his brothers came back to help him live the dream that he's trying to live in his last year at IU. He wants to make it a no-brainer to be in the NCAA tournament. We don't want to have to sit up here and on selection weekend wonder if we may or may not make it. Nobody wants to do that again. That was a lot. We don't want to do that again. But he was really excited that they came back. And then when Bryant said that he was coming, it was like he was which everybody is saying, he was a piece of the puzzle that we were missing. We needed inside presence. We had a little bit of it. We had some kind of flashes of it with Hunter, but we didn't have anything consistent. And I think that with another McDonald's All-American, we're going to have something consistent in the middle where, Yogi's not going to be afraid to drive and drop a dime in there, or he's not going to be afraid to pass it in or take that shot because he knows that Bryant's going to get the rebound. I mean, what did he get, like 11 plus rebounds a game his senior year? So I think it's going to make them feel more comfortable on the court because they have more options, both offensively and defensively.
You mentioned Hunter, and obviously he's unfortunately not with the team, not going to be with the team this year. And
Right.
you think back to Yogi's recruitment and the movement and this big recruiting class that that was going to come in, and of course the irony of that has always been that the movement really happened the year before, because the team kind of came back. But as you reflect on that, and how Yogi is kind of now the lone guy from that class carrying the torch, is there any lesson to be taken from that, from these high expectations that are placed on groups of kids before they even set foot on campus, and how we really need to let it play out before we ever know what each kid and any group collectively is going to be?
Yeah, I think they put a lot of pressure on that incoming class that Yogi was a part of. It was a lot of pressure, and people probably don't even remember the first press conference that Yogi did, and everybody's probably going to go try to find it. But he tried to stomp out the whole movement thing. He said, "We are not a movement. We're just a group of guys who are trying to make a difference here at IU." He tried to squash that, which I think he did a really good job of doing that because we didn't hear too much about the movement after that. But it was a lot of pressure, and like I said, even when Yogi got there his first year, they had to, knock him down a couple of levels and get him to focus on being this is the team that you're going to lead. So, it plus or minus the people that he came in with as far as the movement goes.
So is it now Yogi's role to kind of knock down these new freshmen that are coming in? Obviously Thomas Bryant's coming in with a lot of, and again, everything we've heard of him, it sounds like he's a great, humble kid. But hey,
Right.
any big athlete has an ego.
Yeah.
Is that now
right.
his role to kind of, to kind of knock these guys down and make sure that they're buying into the team concept so the team can have the success that everybody expects next year?
Well, as a senior, and obviously our seniors are few and far between on the team, you naturally have to take that role on. He is the team captain now, so he needs to make sure that team gels, and if that means he's got to make those guys accountable on the court, then that's what he's going to do. If he has to knock them down a couple of levels at practice, and I think that's what he's going to do. Coach Crean always tells me that he feels like Yogi is always headed in the right direction as far as just keeping the kids grounded, adding more excitement to practice and to practices and on the court, and just when they have film and things like that, he's becoming more of a leader. He's becoming more vocal, and that is what Coach Crean has been working towards since his freshman year.
I'm probably stealing Ryan's thunder here, so I hope he doesn't get mad at me. But I'd like to ask you about Coach Crean. I mean, you have obviously been very supportive of Coach Crean, even when a lot of other fans haven't been. And you mentioned the fickle nature of fans, and the coach is often going to take the brunt of that when things are bad and going to get some credit when it's good. But, talk to me, I mean, just as a mother, when you're kind of handing your son off to a coach for 4 years and really entrusting a lot of his development and growth in this coach, what has Coach Crean meant to you and Yogi and your family?
Coach Crean he's very family-oriented kind of guy, and I think that's important, that as a coach you are that, because you are essentially the kids' parents while they're away at college. But knowing Coach Crean personally, just talking to him, I feel open and comfortable enough to call him up anytime I had a question or concerns about anything that's happening. We've sat together at events before, and he is just he doesn't put on a show. It's genuine. It is just a genuine thing for him to care about Yogi as not only an athlete but like a son. He really does care, and I think that that's important. He really does, not just Yogi. He cares about all the kids. And I don't think that that's an act. Some people say, oh, he only cares about him because he's the star player on his team. I don't believe that at all. I think that even after Yogi leaves in 10 years from now, I think that he would be the coach to show up at Yogi's birthday party. I think he'd be the one to show up at his kids, sporting event. I think that that's what kind of guy he is. He's not just a coach. He's a friend, and I think that that's genuine. And I think that people who don't see that and who are only concentrating on the numbers on the court, which it's all a business. I get it. I definitely get that. But I think that if they can trust their coach, which most of them do, I think that they'll be more willing to play for him. They'll play harder for him. They'll do some of the things that he asks. Now, yes, they're young adults, and they're going to do some stupid stuff. And they're going to do some really stupid stuff. But it's part of growing, and everybody's done it. They just so happen to be doing it in front of thousands or millions of people.
Yeah. Keeping the focus on this upcoming season, obviously expectations are kind of high. So to you, what would make next year a success? Either it be like a Big Ten championship, raising that 6th banner, or possibly your son being a top 10 pick in the NBA draft?
Obviously, everybody wants that 6th banner. It would be nice if Yogi can get that, but I am cautiously optimistic. So one day at a time, that's how I do it. So let's work on continuing to get threes every game. Let's start there. But then those threes in games will transition to, hey, we've won 5 games in a row. Looky there. Well, hey, we might as well go after that Big Ten championship. Let's get that. Let's get our vote into the NCAA tournament. Oh, now that we're here, why don't we just make it to the Sweet 16? Oh, look, we're here. That's kind of how I play it. After freshman, sophomore, junior year, I was let down so miserably his sophomore year. That was just a sad year for me. I have learned to take things I call it the snowball effect. Start small and then roll it into something huge. So we're just going to start with consistent threes. Let's start there.
One step at a time. You sound like a grizzled sports parent with a perspective like that. Because, you're right. This program, it's been a bit of a roller coaster, and sometimes you expect.
Yes.
I think it was last year before the Northwestern game, I wrote an article, is this team peaking at the right time? And they proceeded to lose 3 in a row and play their worst.
That was your jinx. Yes,
totally
I remember that. Yes,
totally
your jinx. Oh, I still remember.
Worst article ever. No more in-season articles for me. I'm done with that. So here's another question that Andy wanted us to ask. Who do you see? I mean, outside of Yogi, obviously, and outside of Thomas Bryant, because a lot's been made of him. Who else do you think is the X factor for next year? And maybe based on things you've heard from how guys are working out and just what you expect of a guy to do, is there anyone in particular that you think is really ready to break out and kind of be the guy that helps this team get to the next level next year?
My go-to guy is actually Troy. I think he's going to have a huge, huge year. I think he's going to be somebody that you notice, during the first few games. He'll be finding his feet again, but you're going to see a kid who's more in control. You're going to see a kid who's just making better decisions, better passing decisions, better, hey, let's not take that drive, let's pass it off and, let somebody else do it. I think he's going to break out defensively. I think he's going to do some things on the other end of the court that we haven't seen him do before. He's going to be a different kind of player. I'm making this his breakout year. He's going to do big things this year.
I think if ever Ryan, Will, and Andy can't join me for a post-game show, do you think you and Patty would join me? And just three of us will host a show together.
You bet. Yes.
I think that'd be
absolutely, yeah.
Will,
Patty might outdo me, but yeah.
Will, did we just get fired?
Yeah, I
think we get fired.
Hey, you guys have left me hanging before. I'm just trying to get my co-hosts and make sure we have something lined up.
Oh man.
So, Doc, what? Obviously, we're all partial to Assembly Hall, some more than others. But outside of Assembly Hall, what's the best venue you've been to in the Big Ten? Which one did you like the most? And I'm also going to ask which one you like the least, so you can formulate that in there as well. But I was just wondering if you had one that really stood out as a place you enjoyed watching a basketball game.
The best place. It's kind of biased, I guess, mainly because we sealed our Big Ten championship there, and that's at Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that was a great place to watch a game. But
yeah,
they have great facilities. It's a great stadium. I don't like where they sit the parents. I think they do need to change that. But that being, we have great seats, but the student section literally is one row behind us, so they can, we can high five each other if we wanted to. So that was it. But most of the time, they were very respectful fans, so I don't have a problem with those fans. The worst place. Every year, no matter what, comes up on top of all other stadiums is Purdue.
Mm-hmm. I was hoping you were going to say that.
It is just horrible. So we have to sit in some chairs that are behind the media bench, for one. And so the most you can see if you're actually sitting down and not interested in the game, because, none of us parents are, is their heads bopping up and down the court. So in order to see anything effectively, we have to stand up the entire game, which I don't have a problem with. That's fine. But I would rather do it without irate fans behind me yelling at me to sit down. That's a problem for me. So they're going to go kind of high on my list as far as a place that I don't like to visit. I like the coach, actually. I do like the coach. And obviously, I have a lot of family that a lot of the kids at Purdue Yogis played with. So, And plenty of those kids spent the night at my house plenty of times. They've been on the same AAU team. So I love the team, the boys. I just don't like the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Doc, wait, hold on. Doc, between you and me, Purdue was the right answer. It's okay.
All right, so.
I probably won a couple of followers on that one.
Yes.
Maybe lost a few too.
All right, so when you attend games, I'm assuming more at Assembly Hall, you receive some sort of attention. So, what kind of attention do you receive, and how many fans? None at all. No. So how many come up there and they try to talk to you about IU basketball or Yogi?
A lot. People wanting pictures and autographs, which I first remind them that I am just the person who birthed them, so I'm not really special, but they do. I don't get so many conversations about the game or anything like that. It's more everybody just, hey, it was a good game, or that was a tough loss, or things like that, or an occasional picture here and there. I probably get more people wanting to talk IU basketball in my office at, where I work, but patients ask me all the time. I probably take up more time talking about IU basketball than I do their illness, but hey, it goes with the territory, I guess, but I love Assembly Hall. They obviously cater a little bit to the parents, and our seats are obviously great, so we always have the best seats in the house, but I always thank Coach Crean after, because I am definitely in earshot of not only him, but also the boys sitting on the bench. So they know, and they often tease Yogi after the game about stuff that I may say behind the bench that nobody else can hear in the stadium. But But I love Assembly Hall. It's like my go-to place. You know, some people have the beach or, you know, some, you know, special place. Assembly Hall is my special place for sure.
What's your favorite Assembly Hall memory so far? Is there a specific moment that sticks out in the 3 years that you've been watching Yogi play there?
That's just like asking me to pick my favorite kid, Jared. I just can't do that. I really don't know. There's so many good games, so many close games there. That's really, really hard to say. I seriously, I can't say. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, that's because it hasn't happened yet, because it's going to happen this year. So it's, you
Good
know,
point. I like it. We're leaving that slate open. Got it.
We got banners to hang, senior nights to have
That's
happen.
right.
You know.
Seriously, yeah. Absolutely.
So I'm curious, how is Yogi most like you, and how is he most unlike you? Personality-wise.
I think that he has the same drive I do. He's passionate about what he does. I always want to say he got that from his mother. He's really smart. That's obviously from his mother as well. He's willing to take responsibilities for whatever he needs to, and I think that's a very important characteristic in any person, whether it's on the court or in the real world, because that's just something that I think that some people don't know how to do or aren't willing to do. But he's definitely somebody with a lot of drive. He also takes after me because he never. I hope you're listening, Yogi. You never text people back immediately, and that's really irritating.
That's just being a college kid, though. I wasn't very good at that either.
Oh, he texts pretty quick when he needs the money in his account. That's probably that gets really quick. But again, that's a college kid for you, I suppose. The thing that he's not like me, that's hard to say. I don't know. That's a tough question.
That is a tough question. Well, here's another maybe tough question, maybe even an unfair question, but I'm going to ask you anyway. So I'm working on this kind of secret project. I haven't publicized it yet. We haven't put it out yet. But my goal is to create the definitive list of the top 50 Hoosiers of all time. And I've got some different ways that I'm going to do it with stats, and I've had people look at it, and so there's a whole system going on. And so I've got the preliminary list, and I'm going to give you a quick sneak preview that Yogi right now, entering his senior year, is number 31 on the list. What's your gut reaction? Too high, too low, or just right? Top 50 Hoosier players of all time.
I'm going to say a little too low. Now, I'm not going to be like, I'm not going to say he's top 10. I'm not going to go that far, but a little too low. I'd like to see who's under him and who's over him, but maybe a little too low.
Yeah,
but
well,
I think he's going to move up.
He will. Well, that's the thing, is he'll definitely move up. He will definitely move up. So I'm excited to get that out there. It's not quite ready to be seen by everybody yet. I want to finalize it, but I was just curious to get your thoughts. And obviously, there's another number 11 who's up there pretty high, and it'll be interesting to see how close he can get to that number 11.
I can see how he's probably over the current number 11. That's understandable. So.
But but I will say,
Yogi's got a full season to move his way up that list. So that's definitely an advantage. So.
I think he's well on his way. He already broke the record for one squat. He's got the one squat record for 6 foot and under at IU. So that's where our records are going to start, and hopefully that helps move him up the ladder a little bit. So I'm going to be watching that list. So when are you going to publicize it?
We haven't finalized that. It'll come out before the season. We'll probably roll it out, player by player, do some fun kind of rollout with it. But then I want to keep it going. We'll, like Troy, I think was 100 and something. But based on what he does this year, he'll move up, and
Right.
James will get on the list, and all those guys. So it'll be interesting. We'll just keep it going. Try to. It's hard though comparing over eras, because the thing is, and you know this. I mean, Indiana's had so many great players. I mean, what is it like you as a mother, I mean, going to all the practices and helping Yogi out so much as he grew up as a basketball player, to see him now at one of the premier college basketball programs in the country with so many great players, his name get mentioned, with guys like that. I mean, what is that like to just watch that develop?
Definitely a good feeling. It's definitely something that helps. How do I say it? It helps me know that, hey, I'm not just a mom who thinks that their kid is the best. It feels good to know that plenty of people also think that he's doing a pretty darn good job at keeping the team where it needs to be, and just being a good leader for IU basketball. I think that that's a good thing. He definitely has a name that's going to go down in history. I'm glad I named him Yogi when he was 2 days old, that's for sure. So when somebody says Yogi, they're not going to say, which Yogi? No, they won't say that. They'll know.
That's right.
No last name needed. But it is a good feeling to know that he is literally among the ranks of some of the greatest IU basketball players that were there.
And for anybody who doesn't know, where did the name Yogi come from?
Yogi was obviously my firstborn, and he ate a lot. And I thought I was literally doing something wrong. So he was always looking for a picnic basket, always crying for food. So at day 2, I said, yeah, you're Yogi. That's the name that we're gonna. And he tried to fight it for a long time, actually. Even in, like, when he got to grade school and his kindergarten teacher was calling him Yogi, he's like, nobody calls me Yogi except for my mom and dad. You can't call me Yogi. But it didn't work. It obviously stuck, which I think he's happy about now.
Yeah, well,
Kevin,
like you said, it's a differentiator.
Kevin never had a chance once you gave him the nickname. Kevin never had a chance.
Never had a chance.
That's right. Well, we're coming up on an hour, and we need to close things down.
No.
We so much appreciate you doing this, but I do have one final question. I know, you talked earlier about, taking it, moment by moment and game by game, which obviously you have to do. But as you look at next year's schedule, there's a trip to Maui, there's a trip to Duke on the schedule. Obviously, all the places in the Big Ten. Is there any particular game or trip that you are looking forward to? I mean, because it's your last go-around with Yogi. I imagine that'll make it kind of a special experience. Anything in particular you're looking forward to next year?
Honestly, I'm going to fast forward to the end of the season and talk about senior night.
Yeah.
That's going to be a tough day for me. It's going to be a tough day for me, but I think it's also going to be probably one of my proudest moments because he accomplished a lot. He would have accomplished a lot while he was there, and he'll be leaving with a degree, which is always my ultimate goal. He'll be moving on to another phase of his life, which will be tough. But not only that, Yogi is a really, really quiet kid. And if nobody's ever known that, he's a really quiet kid. So to hear him stand up there and talk for, 15 minutes is going to be quite amazing. So I'm just interested to hear what he's going to have to say, about his career at IU. And it'll be a good talk, I'm sure. Either that or it'll be just as short as, who was that Will?
Yeah,
who took all of 30 seconds to thank 2 people and walked away. Maybe it'll be like that. I don't know.
I mean, those. I mean, I remember watching those, from the late '80s and the early '90s. I mean, senior night is such a special night when you've watched a guy grow up from freshman to senior. It's special for everybody. So, and his, obviously, there's something a little extra special when it's a guy who's put himself into that, legendary type category, which Yogi's done in a lot of ways and really has a way to, has a chance to solidify this year. So I think for a lot of us, that'll be a very special night. So, and hopefully it comes at the end of a Big Ten title season and is a springboard to some great tourney success, because I can't think of any better way to end his career and end your, these 4 years anyway with Indiana than a nice deep run in the tournament, which would be quite wonderful.
We can hope and pray.
Yes, we can. Well, thank you so much for coming. If anybody doesn't follow you on Twitter already, it's at DocLibby, DocLibby. And are you planning any more blog posts this year? Is that going to be a You gonna get back into writing? Because you write very well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll be doing a lot. I'll probably do more this year than I've done in the past year, only because it's Yogi's last year, and I have a lot to say, so I'm gonna say it, and hopefully it'll be interesting enough for people to read, and interesting for non-fans to read as well, because I found that doing the blog, I have people who hate IU basketball sending me comments about different things in the blog, and I just reply, oh, I'm glad you've read it. So it's my goal to just get everybody on the same page this year, fan or no fan of IU, and hopefully it'll be a good thing. But yeah, I'll be doing plenty of blogs this year.
Excellent, excellent. And that's DocLibby.net for anybody who wants to read the blog. Well, thank you, and thank you everybody who watched tonight. We appreciate if you watch live, if you're listening to the podcast or watching the archive. We always appreciate you watching, and we are doing these in the off-season every other Monday, so not next Monday, but the Monday after. We'll have a new show for you, and again, make sure to go to assemblycall.com/subscribe. Get on the email list so we can stay in touch with you in the off-season, let you know when the top 50 Hoosiers of all time list is out, and otherwise, just keep the momentum going during the off-season for what should be a great, wonderful, successful season coming up this year. All right, everybody. Thank you all very much. We will talk to you soon.
See you later.